In the heart of the forest, legends awaken from the shadows. The tales of Sasquatch echo through time, a mystery that remains unsolved.
As the smoke clears, the sign stands resolute, a beacon of intrigue. What secrets lie within the forest's depths? The quest for truth begins at Sasquatch Watch Radio. Here's Billy Willard and Gary Kendrick.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Sasquatch Watch Radio. Today is Monday, March the 3rd, 2025. We got a great show lined up for you tonight because we got the infamous Steve Kulls that's going to be on the show with us. Before we bring him in, let's get our sidekick in here, Gary Kendrick. How you doing, Gary?
Hey, everybody doing good. How about you, Billy?
I am just fine. I tell you, between this weather going up and down with the temperatures, we're all going to end up with the flu.
If not pneumonia.
Yeah, it's getting terrible.
I
getting
think
tired of it, and I want my 50 degrees back.
Yeah, no kidding. It's been like 27 degrees at night now, again.
Yeah, it's just crazy. It just doesn't make any
They
sense.
say we're supposed to get snow on Thursday here. I mean, that's...
You know, keep it down there.
Yeah, it's life in the mountains. You never know what you're going to get. It could be 60 degrees today and, snow 4 feet tomorrow.
Yeah, no kidding. Quick shout out. I don't remember if I told you or not, Gary, but back last week, I went and did a radio spot at the local radio station here in Front Royal, Virginia. And it was to... I don't know if this will show up on the camera or not. It probably won't because of the virtual background. But so I went to DMV Weight Loss Center up in Winchester, Virginia. 3 months, I lost 40 pounds.
Whoop.
So they decided, they said, you know what? We want you to do a testimony on the radio station. So I went up there. So big shout out to Randy Woodward. He's the DJ there in the mornings on the River 95.3. And, of course, we got into a conversation about Bigfoot for the last 30 minutes after we did the spots. So, and I gave him a card because he's said he's going to listen to the podcast. So,
well, you got to get Squatch every chance you get.
So, Randy, if you're out there, thanks a lot. I enjoyed talking with you. All right. So, to get this show underway, let's get the man, Steve Kulls, the Squatch Detective.
Hello, guys. Hey, congratulations on that weight loss, Billy, by the way.
Yeah, that's almost...
Thank you very much.
I lost 135 pounds back in 2007. I got divorced. So...
It happens.
Oh, here we go with the jokes. Here we go. Where's Mick? Where's Mick at?
Oh, and as far as your weather is concerned, all I have to say about that is welcome to New York.
Exactly.
I just want you to know, Steve, that your weather is down here in my backyard, and it's throwing a fit. I think it may be drunk. You need to come and get it.
No, you know what it is? It's the Canadians. I blame the Canadians. No offense to the Buckwurst crew.
Yeah, you better watch because they're listening.
I only said that because they're there.
Oh my goodness. Well,
No,
we're glad to have you back on the show.
It's going
We're
down
glad
to
to have
10
you
degrees here tonight, though. But I will say...
No, well, you keep that.
It's supposed to be in the 50s on Thursday, though. So
Yeah,
we got you there.
On Thursday. Thanks. Thanks.
Well, anyway, so it's our understanding, and I'll let Gary take over here, but one of the main reasons we brought you on is because you've been busy over the last several months creating some weapons in the woods,
Yeah.
as we were calling them.
They're so versatile. You can use them as paperweights. You can use them as throwing weapons against Sasquatch, or if you need to, you can even put them in the fire and build the fire even bigger.
Yeah, especially right now when it's 10 degrees. I mean, it'll warm you up.
Right. But no, there is. I got to say that there's a lot more going on. There's so much that I have been doing lately. It's amazing that AI can help speed up research, and I am taxing AI. I've been studying AI since the beginning of last year, and now I'm starting to put it to work. And some of the statistics, and I'll explain that down the road. But I'll let you guys get on to what you guys want to ask and talk.
Well, all right, I'm turning it over to Gary. It's all you, Gary.
Steve, I'm glad to have you back on the show, pal.
Same here, Gary.
We brought Steve on. Steve has got a new book out, Bigfoot, A Scientific Examination, which is really hard for an old country boy like me to spell. And Steve, this book came out March the 1st.
Yep, it's only been out a couple of days now.
And Steve also has another book coming out March the 15th.
Yep.
It's the Sasquatch Detective Guide to Bigfoot Investigations. So Steve has been really busy. Not only does Steve write as an author, but he also podcasts. He brought his blog back on. He does field research. And I think you still work in investigation, don't you?
No, I retired back in October of 23.
Okay. So, yeah, that's a full plate.
Yeah. It is. And I have yet another book coming out April 5th. What Would Sasquatch Do? Volume 2. And we shore up the whole primate, hypotheses that, some of the things we can, some of the similarities, can primate behavior not only correlate, but help elevate evidence for Sasquatch. And turns out I believe it very well can.
Yeah, I've got a question. We're going to get into that a little bit later in the show. But I want to start off with what prompted Steve Kulls, the Sasquatch Detective, to write a scientific examination of Bigfoot?
Well, it's kind of funny how that started. And Digger's right. You do. I spend a lot of time verifying that the information and everything that AI had spit out is not only checked, it's cross-referenced. So I wasn't just using one AI to help do research. I was using several different models through different platforms. And what made me start to do it was I had gotten thinking about my book I wrote last year, The Psychology of Bigfoot. It's one of the first books of its kind. It talks about, most of the book talks about the psychology of witnesses, from the good to the bad to the, post-traumatic stress disorder, all that, what causes us not to be able to take pictures all the time. Everybody claims, why is there no pictures? Well, we explain that, because it explains the limit. Well, anyway, I wanted to do a scientific paper. So I was helping AI kind of craft the outline of it so it stayed in proper form. And I was doing some research and going back and forth. And it came out to be this nice 10-page report talking about, witnesses, the psychology of witnesses, and in relation to Bigfoot reports. And when I got done with it, I'm like, I bet you I could apply this type of research and behavior to all the questions we have about Bigfoot. So before you know it, that one paper turned out to be 79 papers.
Cool.
I'm sorry, 79 or 49, but whatever the case, it turned out after indexing and proper table of contents and an appendix, it turned out to be a 405-page book. And but some of the areas, and one of the nice things one of the things I tried to strive to do is I broke the papers down in 3 separate sections, or I'm sorry, 4 separate sections, maybe 3. I don't know. It's been because I finished this book mid-February, so I gave it some time to let it marinate, get the product perfect before I released it. But like section 1 is and everything is very nicely organized so you can read it and understand what page to go to. But the section 1 is biological and physiological papers. Section 2 is the social science papers. Section 3 are case studies. And section 4 are furthering research, papers on furthering research. And then in the epilogue, I do what I call the last paper, which is the scientific plausibility of Bigfoot. And that itself is like an 8-page report.
Yeah.
So I mean, you want to ask a question like, olfactory capabilities, what about Bigfoot vision? So I use science and what is known about mammals and, science, real science, and I craft paper into what would be the realistic model for a Bigfoot.
Right.
Excellent.
Cool.
And you'll really be surprised when you do get into some of the, like he was talking about, the olfactory sense. How good can Bigfoot smell? I can tell you this: a North American black bear can smell a fresh kill up to about 10 miles away.
Well, I every time I write a book, I learn something, and I'll give a little secret away about that particular section. Is I found out that chimps, gorillas, and likely Sasquatch have slightly more scent nerves in their noses than we do as Homo sapiens. It still doesn't, amount nearly as much as a bear or a deer or a canine.
Mm-hmm.
So can they smell something miles away? No. But are they very sensitive to smell? Likely yes.
Yeah.
Likely yes.
Steve, if you can you tell the listeners where they might be able to get a hold of your books at?
Well, you can find them on Amazon.com. And the easy way to do it is I have an influencer page on Amazon. And if you go to SquatchDetective.com, you'll see the books. You'll see my influencer graphic there with the books. Just click on that. It'll take you right to the page where you can order the books.
Little shameless plug there.
Yep, little shameless.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna find it here in a minute, and I'm gonna post
it. Steve, this is your 5th book, which I had to verify because I kind of had it screwed up.
Oh, I had to think about it too.
But this is your 5th book, and soon to be your 6th book and 7th book coming out.
Yep.
You've had over 25 years of field research. You're a podcaster. You've got the blog going. What is the best field researcher? What is the best advice you can give a beginner?
Study crop circles. No. Go to crop circles. Don't get in now. No. The best advice I can give to anybody that's like brand new and they want to jump in is spend your first year reading. Know the players.
Good
Read
advice.
the books. Ask questions. Don't start posting like you know everything. Don't start posting questions in social media groups. Find somebody in a media group and PM them and ask them person to person. When I first got into this, there were predominantly 2 people originally that I had talked to, and that was Eric Altman and the late Hawk Spearman. And that's how I got really started. I started talking with them, asking them questions. And remarkably, they were both saying pretty much the same things. And then you start dabbling, you start reading some more, and when I got involved in 98, we didn't have Facebook. We didn't have social media. We had email groups. Mm-hmm. And then after the email groups, we went to forums. And after forums, then social media started creeping in. And, Facebook started creeping in. And then YouTube crept in, and then you had Instagram and Twitter, and now X, and it just, so everything blossomed after a number of years, and then has its good sides and bad sides.
I agree with that.
You mean like red circles? Is that bad, Steve? Red
I'm sorry?
circles. Red circles, are they bad?
It depends what you're trying to put a red circle around.
Is there any red circles in your book, Steve?
No, I don't think so. If there are red circles in my books, they're to point out why red circles are not good. And since they're in black and white, the books are in print. The print inside the books is black and white. There are no red circles in the book.
Okay, good.
I was guilty of that when I first started. I have to admit that. Because I seen something that I questioned, and I was like, I'll just highlight it and send it to Billy and see what he thinks. And I highlighted it and sent it to Billy. Billy's like, don't put red circles on it.
I
know. According to the Sasquatch Detective, what is the best equipment for field research?
Right here. Aside from the safety equipment and having some, thermal, believe it or not, God, it's weird to say this. Thermal is affordable, right?
It is now.
Billy and I can remember the day when, like, man, that sure is a nice piece of equipment. I wish I could afford a few $1,000s for one. Now I go out, I got 5 of them hanging off my nose.
Now you can attach it to your iPhone.
Right? Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I mean, a carton of eggs is more money than a thermal now.
Yeah.
That's why you should raise chicken, Steve. It's gold, I'm telling you.
Well, that was funny. A couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I put a little meme up there of a Veruca Salt trying to get the golden egg with the Oompa Loompas around it. I go, well, who knew?
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
That's right.
But seriously, your mind is the best weapon you have out there. If you think about it, we are Homo sapiens. We are at the top of the thinkers on the planet, as far as we know. Now, a Sasquatch, people may, there will be a contingent. Well, Sasquatch is a lost tribe of people. I could give you 1,000 examples of why that's wrong. The easiest is look at their footprints. Their foot structure is different than ours. Hence, that would give you a different DNA than ours. Hence, that would not make them the same as us. That's as simple as I can break it down to. But we don't see any complicated tool use, any use of technology or use of fire, anything like that. So when we go out there, just like when we're hunting other things in the forest, like canines and ursas and etc., our number one tool is our brain. We have to, we strategize, we plan, we got to go here, we got to go there, we got to go here. That's always in use. People forget that. People get focused on the mundane, like a cell phone or a phone camera or even a piece of equipment. No, the best piece of equipment you have is right here. As long as you keep scientific principles and basic knowledge. That's why education is a huge step before you step into those woods.
Well,
excellent. Another thing that I wanted to talk about, and I've heard you talk about this on several other podcasts, is let's talk about camouflage in Sasquatch. And I want to kind of step in there on this part, and I've said it several times too. I won't take anything away from what somebody says in their encounter. It's their encounter. That's what their brain interpreted it as or whatever. I might see it a little different. And one of the things that I say is with the camouflage in Sasquatch can pull the old Homer Simpson where he just fades back into the bush and disappears.
Similar, very, very close. First of all, when it comes to what people observe versus, and you're very right, two people will see the same thing and sees very different things, and there's a good reason by that, because everybody's limbic system acts differently. And Sasquatch may be in your wheelhouse. You're like, okay, I know a Sasquatch exists. The person next to you may be like, oh, that's always a bunch of garbage, and there's no such thing as Bigfoot, and there's one. So their emotional range and their body's reaction is going to be, including their recollection of the incident, any post-traumatic regression, any post, delays in trying to recognize what they're seeing, is going to be different from yours, because Bigfoot is in your wheelhouse. You're like, oh my God, that's a Bigfoot right there, and now you're excited and your heart's racing for a whole nother reason than theirs. Because that sighting is rocking their world. That sighting to you is exhilarating you. So that's why your experiences will be different. But there are numbers of different camouflages creatures of the planet use. And one of the most common things is an active camouflage, like the spots on a cheetah, the stripes on a tiger, the color of a bear. There's a reason why an orangutan is kind of reddish in color, because it blends better in the jungles of Sumatra and Borneo than it would, say, in the jungles of Africa. But even gorillas blend very well into the jungles, as do chimpanzees, bonobos, Billy apes, all those guys. No offense, Billy. I'm talking about the Billy apes.
Well, yeah, I know. I understand.
No, Bigfoot Billy.
I'm a Billy ape. Go ahead.
And ask the chimpanzees will say, "I'm the Billy apes. They're just a cheap knockoff version of us." That's all. Yeah. But in reality, it's the same thing with any of our North American animals. Look at a bobcat, a deer. Deer runs across the road. You're looking, it's gone. Where did it go? Right? There's a lot of pictures out there on the internet of deer just laying in a field of grass, and you can't see them. And grass is green. One would think you would see this tannish brown deer, but you don't, because those colors naturally blend, and it affects the way, because of that, it affects the way we see things. We look, and it's almost like a colorblind test, where you got to try to find the dots in this big litany of dots, and you got to find a number. So that's the way it happens very often.
Yep.
Excellent. Another thing I want to talk about here, Steve, is in your years of research and things like that, have you noticed a lot of primate behavior in Sasquatch, like the swaying, rock throwing, the tree peaking, things like that?
Well, I mean, the two I've seen myself, one was standing very close to the utility pole, utilizing that pole as kind of like a cover. And it was watching our campfire with our team around it.
That was one in Texas, wasn't it?
Huh?
Was that the one in Texas?
This is in New York.
Okay.
This happened back in 2011. And I got a flashlight on it, and that sucker was 8 foot tall. We actually measured it. We had a team. They found where it had stepped in. The dirt was still falling in, and they videotaped the whole thing, which was a marvelous thing. I had a guy who had a big interest in Bigfoot. He now lives in the Carolinas. Excuse me. And he was along, so he had his professional video camera with him, the ones he uses to video all kinds of things like weddings and commercials and stuff like that. So got a real good quality video of me being interviewed seconds after the sighting, basically. So it was really cool to get all that right away. And the second time I was coming out of my tent, and it heard me coming out of tent. So it was a juvenile, and it was in mid-run. By the time I get out there and look, I just saw it darting off. And that was only that itself was only about five and a half feet tall. It was like the whole sighting lasted about 5 seconds, and that one I was like, "What the?" And I'm like, "No, I couldn't have seen that." And then there was a whole other things, and Wayne and Melissa were on that particular expedition as well. And they had actually, and Melissa had found the print that it had left by. It was only a 9-inch print, very wide, no arch, 5 toes. So very, very interesting stuff.
Yep.
But as far as other primate stuff like rock throwing, rock clacking, I've had rocks thrown plenty. We did a live podcast. I want to say it was 2019, just before the vid. And I was with another researcher, Tactical Bigfoot Research, also known as Mike Ann. We were up in a place in Saratoga County, New York, kind of tracking down an old sighting. And we decided to do, because we had a 5G signal up there, we decided to do an expedition live in the field. And both him and I, both Mike and I, we were together, and we had a rock come sailing through the brush at us, landing, virtually at our feet. And, so yeah, there's that. There's displays. There's lots of reports of displays, tree shaking. And there's been other reports of swaying and the utilization of the trees, all very primate-like, or I should say, very similar to the pongid type of behavior we see in Africa. Now, I'm not saying they're purely pongid. Please let me clarify that. We don't know if they're of a branch off the Homo sapiens. We don't know if they're a branch off the Ardipithecines. We don't know if they're a branch off the Australopithecines, or it's even possible they may be the last survivor of the Paranthropus line. So that's another one that I float out there too, is they could be and there's, so I just want to say they're primate, but where they fall in that line, I don't know. But they act like all other primates do, because truthfully, rock throwing, tree shaking, displays, we do that too sometimes as Homo sapiens.
Quite a bit. I've done some study on myself. Privately, it doesn't have anything to do with the show or anything else. Just in my own quest to try to determine what I think Sasquatch might be, into the Australopithecines, Paranthropus boisei, Paranthropus robustus, which was actually a little bit smaller than Paranthropus boisei. Boisei lived in the eastern part of Africa. Robustus lived in the southern part of Africa. And they were both considered robust Australopithecines. And I don't think there's ever been any evidence that they've found any type of fossil evidence of them outside of Africa, which really brings up some interesting, thoughts on my part. I went as far as, like you said, even into the Homo species, like Homo ergaster, Homo erectus, and things like that, to try to figure out what, where this thing sits. And it seems, and, this, like I said, this is just for me, but it seems to me like once you get into the scientific side of it and you start looking at, the Australopithecines and the Homos and all this other stuff, everything kind of, it's not a family tree.
No, it's a very,
it's more like a bush.
I was going to say, it's like a big shrub.
Yeah, it's everywhere. You actually have, like, the Paranthropus species coexisted along with several of the Australopithecine species and several of the Homo species, like Homo ergaster and possibly Homo habilis. So, it leads into more questions for me that I have to keep digging and digging and digging and try to find, the answers for.
Well, now you have even something new to look at, Homo nephritti.
Yeah.
There's that. I mean, nephritti and habilis both had some transitional foot things going on there.
Yes, they did.
They were bipedal, but their feet still had some indications that they were arboreal. So when you look at that, that's probably, now think about that, that's probably a good place to start, where maybe this is the line, or this is the time period where the branch as Sasquatch may have broken off from wherever it did.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but you think about it, you know, it's true, but you got to remember Homo sapiens started in Africa as well.
Yes, and they moved out.
And they moved out. Could that be the same with a remnant of the Paranthropus line?
Well, like I said, until they can come up with some solid science on it where they found one outside of Africa, that leaves that question open.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole thing is open, really, because, you know, Gigantopithecus, I mean, most of the North American creatures came from Asia. So, and what they found out recently, too, is that the creatures such as the saber-toothed tiger and the mastodon and the mastodons, they came here before Homo sapiens did.
I've read one study where they talk about multiple migration, I think is the term that they used, where some species did cross the Bering Sea land bridge, and other species actually paralleled the coast of the United States and Canada and actually made landfall in South America and then migrated north back up into North America, as well as other species coming from across the land bridge.
Well, it's a very well-known fact that the North American leaping bullfrog actually walked the line of the equator to get to North America.
All right,
I think that's on there for a second.
That's a good segue into your song. So I didn't have to ask Steve what kind of song he likes. I already know what kind of music he likes. So he didn't get the opportunity to tell me. So here's your song, Steve.
Steve Kulls prowls the woods at night, hunting shadows in the pale moonlight. Bigfoot's whispers in the trees, so deep through the scamming fraud he'll creep. Hopes to tremble as he comes, truth in his grip, silence drums. New York forest is battleground, he's the legend hunter all around. Hopes to tremble as he comes, truth in his grip, silence drums. New York forest is battleground, he's the legend hunter all around. Squatch detective, justice call, knows the real from the fake tall tale. In the dark where the hoaxers fail, truth prevails when lies fall. Footprints vanish like a ghost, evidence that can't be toast. Trail can set in hidden glades, catching myths, truth invades. Steve will rest till dawn is near, chasing legends no man fears. He's the watchful sentinel, ending secrets myths dispel. Squatch detective, justice call, knows the real from the fake tall tale. In the dark where the hoaxers fail, truth prevails when lies fall.
Rocket Man, Rocket.
Is that Nickelback?
No, not even close.
Oh man.
Sounded like Nickelback.
That kind, I don't know. I'm leaning more towards the '80s rock band Rat.
I don't know about that. I mean, it doesn't sound like Round and Round. Round and Round. Is that
Yeah.
round? Is that round?
The music's more what lyrics are kind of debatable, but I mean, I'm more into the music.
Digger makes a point in chat, I noticed, saying that maybe they came from here, North America, and went there. Unfortunately, the fossil records for North America, for as far as primates go, only show, I believe, Homo erectus and us.
That's correct.
Yep.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So there would be some other fossil in the record. It's very fascinating that, when we started developing the country, we were doing a lot of digging. We didn't care about bones. They just tossed them aside and built. It wasn't until science came about and we got into the more the mid 1800s where we started to be a little more precise about those things. And by that time, and after 2-3 wars on the continent, I'm pretty sure the Sasquatch were pretty much holed up, being very, very timid of Homo sapiens. So
there's a pretty good study that I've read about the Homo sapiens that inhabited Alaska, Canada, and North America to start with, that they were more of a seafaring people, and they were actually not really interested in the megafauna necessarily, like was originally thought. The mammoths and all that came across the Bering Sea land bridge. These people were more of a seafaring. They were more fish, marine mammals, and things like that than they were the megafauna. I think the megafauna only came after they started establishing, their culture on land.
Well, think about it from this way too. It's a natural progression. You start eating the things and hunting the things and fishing for things that are small and don't put up much of a fight. But as your technology increases, as your tools increase, as your invention rate increases, that gives you the tools to go get the bigger things. So we had lost that hunting edge quite a bit. So you didn't hear people hunting elephants for food. But they started killing elephants when the rifle was created, when the gunpowder was starting to be used. But conversely, the Native Americans were taking down buffalo for years with just bows, arrows, and spears,
and stone heads.
right?
That's the important thing,
But my guess is they didn't start with the buffalo. They probably started with rabbits, squirrels, eventually making their way up to deer and elk, and then there's a buffalo. But now we will come up with a stronger spear tip or a broader arrowhead, to assist in that. So it's a best I can say is it's a technology that has to improve.
I'll give you a little, I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm part Native American myself. I'm Cherokee and Shawnee and Scottish. That's why I can grow a good beard, the Scottish part. But a lot of people don't realize this, but other than South Americans, the Cherokee Indians of the East Coast are the only known Native American tribe to hunt small game animals with a blowgun.
And there you go.
So, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Steve, another thing I want to speak on here, and I've heard you talk about this on several podcasts also, is there's a difference between communication and language. What are your thoughts on the differences in communication and language in Sasquatch?
Well, a lot of people want to attribute to noises they hear. Now, mind you, people hear these things, but they never actually see them making these noises. That's number one. So we have to kind of keep that in our afterthought. But there are people that will say, "Well, it sounded like a language to me," and it's our natural ability to basically what we call anthropomorphize or make something that we're used to or take it from our reference. Just like the dog that's, oh, listen, my dog can say hello. Oh, right? The dog's not really saying hello, right? He's barking, but he's making a sound that sounds like hello. So you play upon that. Just like I taught my Shih Tzu how to howl like a wolf. If I every once in a while I can get him to do it. Ooh, and he's a Shih Tzu. So, but there is a communication form, just like there are amongst chimpanzees, gorillas, and it's their own language per se, but it's not a language per se with the articulation of ours. And a lot of people don't know. There's a couple of things. Number one, our voice box is a lot higher up than a lot of than other primates. That gives us a chance to articulate a lot better. Matter of fact, Neanderthals had a lower placed voice box, and although they say that Neanderthals had language, their language was a little more primitive than ours because they would have a problem saying ooh, e, and ah.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine them trying to sing that song, ooh, e, ooh, ah, e. No, but they had problems saying they would have problems because of the placement of their vocal cords. So that's huge. We have especially articulated vocal cords that allow us the distinction to speak articulately. Also, there is the FOX2N gene. The FOX2N gene is a mutation that allows us to better understand. Not necessarily gives us the ability to speak, although it has something to do with it, but the scientists are not quite sure. But what they do know is it has the ability for the connections in the brain to become more, to number one, retain more memory, and number two, be more articulate. They actually put a human FOX2N gene in some mice, and what they noticed was that they were actually squeaking differently. And they were a lot smarter, and they ended up remembering a lot of different things that normally mice would just forget after a while. So very interesting. So if anybody's interested in that, I mean, I'm no expert on the FOX2N gene, but it's fascinating stuff. And the fact that no other primate has the FOX2N gene except us and Neanderthals.
All right. Guess what time it is, Gary?
Oh, it's that time.
So if you guys have any questions for Steve, now's your opportunity here. Type them into the chat and we'll put them up for him. All right. Keep continuing there, Gary.
All right. I already know the answer to this one, but this is the same question I try to ask all of our guests. And it's weird, and I'm sure you've probably heard me ask it before. It's animal, mineral, or vegetable. Animal, do you believe that Bigfoot is a living animal?
Absolutely.
Mineral, do you believe that it is possibly interdimensional or extraterrestrial? Or vegetable, do you think it might be spiritual?
Nope. It's purely a primate. It's an undiscovered primate. From the beginning of even the native, although there are a few Native American tribes that call them spiritual, a lot of them call them a man of the woods, a tribe in the woods, that even there's a lot of Native American tribes that say they are of this earth. Mm-hmm. Now, and there's a lot of Native American tribes that, of course, they assign very spiritual. I mean, there is a great foot on the gas pedal here for anthropomorphization when you talk about legends, like Native American legends. They anthropomorphize quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we would expect that in earlier man, because as we move along time, we get a little better educated about science and reality and stuff like that. So, years ago when you had the giant, the giant sea monster, the squid or whatever, and then we find out in '94 that, oh my goodness, there is a giant squid. So now we understand why it's so elusive, because it's miles down in the trenches of the ocean floor. That's why we don't see it very often.
Yeah.
So we come to this understanding. But again, there's a lot of different aspects of that. I mean, there's just so many litany of things why it is an alien portal jumping, because that would show a level of intelligence that is beyond what it's showing to witnesses. Good old Nick. Absolutely. As a primate, they would be scavengers. So if they saw a meatloaf laying out there in the woods, since it's a protein, right, and it's meat, my guess would be yes, they would eat that meatloaf.
As long as it's not your ex-mom's meatloaf, because that stuff is poison.
Right.
No, they would eat it. They wouldn't know. But that would, hence you would get the term crap squatch.
Oh my goodness.
I try really hard to be professional when I'm doing this, but sometimes Mick absolutely just destroys my professionalism.
Yes, he does.
I like Mick. He's awesome. Steve, you are an evidence-based researcher and critical thinker, as well as scientific-based research. How does this separate you from some researchers?
I don't know. I don't try to compare myself to other people. I stay in my lane, do my own thing. If somebody's doing something differently or something out of, I always give suggestions. I just had a talk with another researcher this evening that was showing me some video on a thermal, and he was using a different color filter. And he's like, it didn't really capture what kind of filter well, maybe you should use a white filter, because that's what I prefer to use, because it makes everything on thermal pop. If it's a live target hit, it'll pop. And, so I don't really consider or try to compare myself to anybody else. I do my own thing. So when I started in this, I said to myself I was going to do my own thing.
And it's worked out really well.
I hope.
This is for the beginners in our audience, or anybody that might be listening. According to Steve Kulls, what is the best Sasquatch evidence out there, and what is the biggest hoax out there?
Oh,
let's see, the best evidence. I always thought Jimmy Chilcutt's dermal ridge evidence was probably some of the best, hardest hitting evidence out there, because it took prints over years, it took prints over geographic locations, and it showed a similarity in dermal ridge patterns. That's the best evidence, I think, that's out there. And why science does not look at that. Now, what was the biggest hoax? No. The biggest hoax, I wouldn't necessarily call it the biggest hoax. I want to call it the best hoax. What was the best hoax out there? And I got to say this. The best hoax out there actually was pulled off by Linda Newton Perry. And it was the Miller doc. And a lot of people say, well, why do you say that? Because so many people believed it. and people couldn't unwrap it until I get a phone call from this researcher way out in the West Coast, phenomenal woman, and says, I've been digging into this and I'm very suspicious of it, but I think I found the real H.A. Miller. So this starts a 3-day on the phone, communicating on chat, sending each other files. And she was like, not sure. I go, that's him. So then I start pulling some stuff together, and I put it together as a nice little package. And we find out that the doctor behind the Miller doc, Dr. H.A. Miller, was not a doctor at all. He had a master's in forestry, and he went to work for the U.S. Forestry Service. Never was an MD like the paper claims that he was first a forester and then got his MD at Harvard, of all places, in 1942. No, H.A. Miller actually was serving in the United States Army in World War II during that time period. Why? Because H.A. Miller wrote a book in the 60s with another author. And there's his whole, or maybe early 70s, and there's all his credentials right there. Including confirming that the picture she used is real. So the lesson there is that when somebody takes a smidge of truth and just tweaks it a little bit, it makes it sound real to people. And
Believable.
Believable, and it's hard to debunk. Of course, the base story was easy to debunk, but the whole meat of the paper and all that stuff, I think that was one of the better hoaxes. Biggest hoaxes, I still say, was Ivan Marks trying to sell Peter Byrne the films of his gimping Sasquatch.
His wife in the uniform.
Yeah.
His wife with her clothes off.
We got a question from
my
Mick
goodness.
here. If I can get my mouse to work. Mick says, in all seriousness, what's your opinion on how much the Sasquatch diet impacts their regional evolution, given that not all regions of North America offer the same food?
Well, I think that part of it would be Bergman's rule. And Bergman's rule states that, very vaguely, because I'm not going to give you the Dr. Steve version of that, because I don't know it word by word, but Bergman's rule says, depending on the food sources, certain areas can affect size and mass of a particular creature or being. And I always point out, look at the difference between North Koreans and South Koreans, that the South Koreans are actually on average a couple inches taller than the North Koreans because they have more food availability and they're not a starving population such as North Korea. But think about it as the Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest seem to be very robust. Why is that? Well, look at the food source they have available all the time. The ones in New York, New England seem to be a little skinnier, lankier, but they're tall, right? And then you look at the ones in Florida, and guess what? They're a little shorter, a little stouter. That makes a lot of sense compared to Bergman's rule, because the hotter it gets, the less mass or space you want to take up, right? So, because the more space you take up, the more robust you are, the more heat is going to attract onto your body. So the Sasquatch generally in the southern tiers are a little smaller in stature and in robustness than, say, in the Pacific Northwest, or tallness like in the Northeast.
Excellent. Okay, this one's going to be kind of iffy, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but you have exposed several hoaxes over the year. Has this caused any friction for you from other groups?
Other groups, depends if they're part of the hoax. I'm talking about that one particular group that is run by that character out there in Menlo Park. They are exposing me on their website as we speak with a video of just me walking around the woods with them. And they turn around and try to state, he calls us liars, but here's Steve with us. No, I never called the team a liar. There's only one person out of that whole crew I called the liar. Right? They may have lied about the big 2008 event, some of them after the fact. But the truth of the matter is, I don't really care if people, if there's a group that doesn't want to associate me because I'm calling people out, or and I'm not calling them out to create a fight or for drama even. It's the truth. That's my job, is to put the truth out. And if so-and-so says that this is a Bigfoot photo and I find evidence to the contrary, that is solid, concrete, physical evidence, I have no problem saying, well, so-and-so is not being truthful because this is the reason why, A, B, C, D, E. It's nothing personal. It's nothing. In 2008, it was personal. There's no doubt about it that it was personal because of what was done to me. Again, 2012, somebody tried to pull a stunt on me, but didn't work so well for him. But it's never personal. And really, I don't have met much friction from groups at all about it. There's only one group out there that has friction about it, and that's because they're run by one of the numero uno hoaxers in the country, or not really a hoaxer. He's not creative enough to come up with his own hoax. What he does is he finds one and he latches onto it. So
yeah, he's back down in Texas, by the way.
No, well, good for him.
And I'd like to hit on this.
Lake Mays.
Oh, back at Pat Mays?
Yeah. Yep.
I'd like to hit on this one right here from Digger Dog. Digger Dog says, funny, food sources go back to 20 to 25 years. Science was saying that there wasn't enough food sources in the Pacific Northwest for them to survive. On that right there, every time I hear that, I do laugh about that, because there has been primates surviving on the North American continent for thousands of years. Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
There's enough food to support it.
Right.
It's ridiculous that science would come out and say that there's no way that it could support a large primate when it has supported primates.
Let's roll that back just a little bit. It's not science saying that. It's a handful of scientists who are putting their own personal biases, right? Their own confirmation bias ahead of the science. I had on my Monster Quest episode, I had Dr. Philip Stevens from the University of Buffalo, who's an anthropologist, say there's no evidence that there's enough food in North America to support a large primate. I'm sorry, but you know what? I may have lost a lot of weight over the years, but at one time I was a pretty large primate. Right? So don't tell me there isn't enough food. Look at all the like I said, look at the Aboriginal Native Americans. Look at the Eskimo. Look at the First Nations people. Look at the Amazonian tribes. That's South America, but I digress. The fact is that just because somebody has a PhD or is a professor or is, an academic rather, I was going to say in academia or an academic, does not take away that they're a human being prone to the same confirmation biases that we can all be prone to.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge step in when you do investigations, is you have to clear your mind of biases. I can believe Bigfoot. I can have a firm belief because I've seen it twice, but I can sit there and put that aside when I go out and investigate to just basically compartmentalize. When we go out in investigations, we have to compartmentalize. People don't do that. Some people don't do that. What they do is they lead with their heart, right? So, and you can't wear your heart on your sleeve. You can't be romantic about it. You can't be fantasizing about it. You have to go out there, compartmentalize. Okay, I believe in Bigfoot, but I need to put that aside now, and I got to deal with this as a scientist / investigator / researcher. And unless you're doing that, you're doing a disservice.
Well, I've noticed over the years that I scrutinize more stuff than I ever did in the beginning. So when I go walking around and I'm seeing stuff, yeah, I'm automatically saying, well, that's not what that is, and then I'm looking for ways to prove it's not.
Right.
That's just the way I do it. You know, for me, back, you know, when I first started back in 2004, you know, at one time everything was Bigfoot. Oh, look over there, there's a stick laying there. But now it's the whole opposite.
Let me add something. I know Digger Dog just said, Digger Dog's last comment. Please don't put words in my mouth. These people are not paid shills. They are not here to derail anything. This is their own biases. This is something they were brought up in their science classes not to believe in. And that's where sometimes skeptics cross over to the religious side as well, right? We have to treat this antiseptically, sterilely, right? But not like a religion. And if you have a religion, hey, that's fine. That's cool. That's a good thing. I have my own religion too. But the problem is that when somebody is raised in science and becomes a scientist, and they are taught that that's ridiculous and that's nonsensical, and that'll get you ostracized, and that will make you look bad, and that's why they say those things. And paid or not, they were just paid for that, but they're not paid to derail anything. They're just paid because they're a critic of it.
Right.
And sometimes.
Yeah, one thing I want to bring up was you mentioned religion, and you know me, Steve, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. One thing I have to say about that is a lot of people will claim that religion won't allow them to believe in the creatures. I for one believe that these creatures are created. I don't believe that it's anything less than a creation. Now, the moment we find out otherwise, and we find out this thing's some type of paranormal, spiritual demon, I'm out. Done.
You ain't the only one.
That's it. Okay. But I believe this thing is just it's a created primate, period. And that's, so again, the ones that voiced out religion won't let me believe it. Well, that's because your thing that everyone is saying that it started swimming out of the water and grew legs and then started walking. Okay. I, for one, don't believe that. So.
And I know, Digger, you say you're not putting words in my mouth, but you said paid shills, Steve meant. And that's not what I meant. I didn't say
one of
paid
the things that I picked up on early when I first started doing the big expedition that we did with multiple groups was I hung out with a guy, Toby Tolman. Toby was a great guy, and he let me in on one of his skeptical things. He says he works on a 51-49% basis. He has to be 51% convinced that something could be real, and 49% convinced that it could be hoaxed. And he said if it's varied the other way, if it's 51 for hoax and 49 for real, he won't even talk about it. So that really stuck in my brain, and I still use that today. I haven't talked to Toby in years. Toby's a great guy.
Sure.
And
that's his way of doing things. Me, I think this is a hoax, but we need to if it comes down to interviewing or getting evidence or whatever, we need to figure it out, because you can't leave as an now, mind you, that's because I was a professional investigator.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't leave a case hanging, right? So, all right, if this is a hoax, we're gonna find out. If it's real or we can't prove it's a hoax, then that's fine. But if we find out it's a hoax, and we can prove it, then we can close the case out, put it to rest, and never be bothered, never let it come into our mind again. If you're 5149 on something, that may come back to haunt you years down the road. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, everybody's got their own way of doing things.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong the way he does it, but that's the reason why I do it. So I don't want this saying, I wonder if that was real. Did I miss an opportunity? I don't want to have that. I don't want to have that thought in my mind.
Well, and that brings me up, and I'm gonna make this my last question, Billy. I promise. But
fine.
In one of your books is, I'm trying to think of the title, and I'm struggling right now, but it's something about a believer through the eyes of a skeptic.
Oh, the Sasquatch Playbook.
Playbook. That's right. That's right. A believer through the eyes of a skeptic, and in using your skepticism, has that ever led you to I don't want to say discard, but maybe just kind of discredit what you thought was really good information, and that you may come back to someday? I don't know if I can say that.
I don't know if I like the word discredit. What it does is, if I look at something through the eye, skeptic, it's what we should all be doing. What's the first thing we should be doing in any investigation is try to debunk. Well, first thing we should do is get the details, get all the background information, interview the witness, and then we try to debunk the shite out of it, because that will do one of two things. Either it'll give us some reasonable doubt to dig further, or two, it will embolden us to say, wait a minute, that, if we can't debunk it, maybe there is something here and we need to explore that avenue further. Mm-hmm. It's all the investigatory process.
Yeah. It's I mean, and when you get into evidence-based practices, it's not easy. It is really, really complicated. Really complicated.
Well, maybe it's because I've been at it for so long. Like right now, I can see patterns. When somebody comes out with a video, I can tell you automatically. I don't even need to look at it right now. There's no real good raw data on it. There's all this vagueness about it. Mm-hmm. Look at the Patterson-Gimlin film. Where was the vagueness on that? There was none.
Right.
We knew when they left, where they were, what they did afterwards, who they were with, who they visited, what plane, where they flew out of, what plane they took, where the film was processed now, which we didn't know until, thanks to Tom Steenberg, we found that out. But look at that information versus what we get now. Oh man, I was on my property the other day and I found, okay, what day was the other day? And who are you and where were you and what time was this and what did you film it with? You don't get any of that. That's a huge problem because you need all of that for something to be considered evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. There's another question from Nick.
Question for Steve.
What's the funniest thing he can recall in relation to Sasquatch research and bunk?
And he also follows that up with, and it doesn't have to be the Henry May ramen noodle incident.
Yes, Billy and I were both there for that one.
With the Yeti scream.
I can almost imitate that scream now. God, what was the funniest thing? Let me think about that for that was a good question. You got me on that one. I'm sure there's one that's going to come to mind, but I will tell you a funny incident. I may have mentioned it on my own podcast, but I remember we were in Vermont and we were therming one of the researchers is like, what the? And I bring my therm over, and you just see this big glow in the field, like this big UFO had landed in the middle of the field, and it was undulating. Right? All you see is this undulation, and it's glowing, and it's bouncing up and down. You're like, what the hell is that? And then all of a sudden, the silence of the air, it was dead silent. Not a sound could be heard. And all you see is this undulating. And then all of a sudden, the silence is broken. Meh! The freaking herd of sheep all huddled together. And in the therm, you're like, what the frick is that in the middle of that field? Because they were all laying down. You could see laying. They were just all... That was probably the funniest thing that ever happened. Like, what?
That's pretty good.
So for months afterwards, you know, we would all like, man. We would, nah. Hey, is that a Bigfoot? Nah.
Well, Steve, I just want to give you an opportunity to plug your podcast, your books, whatever you want to. This is your opportunity to put it out there, what people, you know, where people can get a hold of you or whatever.
Well, the easiest way is to go over to SquatchDetective.com. You can get the link to the books. That'll lead you to the page where you can get the books. Of course, we do podcasts at youtube.com/@SquatchDTV, SquatchDTV on search on YouTube. And we do a podcast Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we also do shows on Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 p.m. for 1 hour each. And we do a 2-hour show on Sunday. And be sure to visit the blog because we're putting a lot of new information, a lot more intensive information on the blog. There you go. Like there's one we did Bigfoot by the numbers, and I actually utilized one of the AI servers to actually scrub the BFRO website, the GCBRO website, the Bigfoot mapping project, and a couple of other databases, the John Green database. And what it did was it scrubbed it. It reference checked to make sure there were no duplicates, and then presented the information in such a way that we could actually develop some statistics like Bigfoot sightings by state, Bigfoot sightings by color, Bigfoot sightings by weather condition, Bigfoot sightings by basically time of day, Bigfoot sightings by month, by season. So very interesting statistics we've come up with using that particular system.
Very nice.
Excellent. Billy, that's all I got, brother.
All right. Well, we appreciate it, Steve. Yeah, I just saw that here.
Yes, we'll put number. We'll assign a number to each color, and we can put it on the Bigfoot. So when you color it in, you know what color to use, and we'll call it Bigfoot by the numbers.
Living close to Kentucky, I'm going to hop in there and say this, Steve. You might want to only use the 8-pack because if you get more than that over in Kentucky, it gets confusing.
That's very true. We can't use the 24-pack.
No.
You know,
yeah, don't use the one. Don't use the one with the sharpener. I don't want nobody get it.
Well, you know, it gets confusing when you start using colors like magenta and teal.
Oh man. Well, we want to thank everybody for being on the show tonight. We had a bunch in the chat room, so appreciate it. And always, because we always forget to do this. So if you guys want to sign up to get emails to shows, you can go to we're mainly using our new website, which is just SquatchRadio.com. Now, SasquatchWatchRadio.com still exists, but I've more power with the SquatchRadio.com. So, and when I say power, it's got the power of AI. So, exactly. So, go over there, put in your email. You won't get spam. The only thing you'll get is when we upload shows, schedule shows, that kind of thing.
Although
also,
Nick is there, you might get meatloafed.
I might get meatloafed.
You might get the meat.
It could happen. Also, our Facebook page, which is just facebook.com/Sasquatch Watch Radio. We've got the YouTube page, the YouTube channel at Sasquatch Radio. So there are several ways, and we always want to stress, if you like our episodes, please click the like button. It helps. Subscribe to the show. That helps. Steve will tell you this. He knows it too. Watch hours are important. Share the show, because the more watch hours you get, the more toys we get from YouTube as they go up. So we're only about 700 or so watch hours away from moving to the next stage. So we've already surpassed the subscribers and all that. So I'll let you all know that it helps out tremendously. So, and I'll put this out there kind of early. I have developed a Sasquatch Watch Radio merchandise store. So I'll put that online sooner rather than later. I'm just working on putting merchandise together just so that everything looks good, and I'll check it and make sure everything's sized right, and then we'll soon have that out as well. So again, we want to thank everybody. Next Monday, we will have Shane Corson coming on Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Then after that, we'll have one more guest show the following week, and then it's going to be our topic show. And as you all remember, the reason we're going to do a topic show is because that was our heaviest hitting show when we did a topic show. So we're going to do it again. And I've got polls up on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel where you can vote on 5 different topics that you'd like to see us discuss. So just wanted to put that out there. Again, Steve, can you hang on while we close out the show? Okay. All right, everybody. We again appreciate it. Appreciate all of our listeners. We'll see you guys next Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Until then, y'all have a great rest of the week. Good night, everybody.
Night, everybody.